The Nazi psycho doctor, Josef Mengele. Infamously known as the Angel of Death, Josef Mengele was a Nazi doctor who killed plenty of prisoners of war, experimenting with their bodies against their will. Josef Mengele was active during the Nazi Party regime and was posted to the Auschwitz concentration camp where he had access to the prisoners. Around that period, approximately 6 million Jews were killed, including an estimated 11 million people worldwide. Many Jews were sent to concentration camps where they were killed in gas chambers. Right inside the concentration camps, doctors conducted horrific experiments on prisoners against their will. Josef Mengele was one of the doctors who used most of the prisoners for his experiments. While in camp, he was also in charge of selecting prisoners for execution in gas chambers. Josef Mengele biography. Josef Mengele was born March 16, 1911 in Ginsburg, Germany, to a wealthy family. He was the eldest of the 3 children born to his parents. In 1935, Josef Mengele attended the prestigious University of Munich, where he was trained in anthropology and medicine. He went on to earn a PhD in both disciplines. A few years later, Josef Mengele was appointed an assistant to a well-known scientist, Dr. Ottmar von Verschuer, who made great strides in the research about twins. Josef Mengele helped on numerous researches, focusing on genetics, twins, and effects of genetics on hereditary symptoms. Josef Mengele's works were rated so highly within Germany and outside of Germany at the time. Joining of the Nazi Party. In 1938, Josef Mengele joined the ruling Nazi Party, who was at the peak of their powers. Josef Mengele was passionate about the Nazi idea of a purified German race, and his research theories backed up the idea. Not long after joining the Nazi Party in 1940, Josef Mengele also joined the Waffen-SS, a military unit, joining as a medical professional in their medical unit. Josef Mengele was drafted to serve in the military, was decorated, and got injured while on campaign in Ukraine. Josef Mengele was sent back to Germany as a result of his injury. While back home, he resumed back to his research job alongside von Verschuer. The two men worked at the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute for Anthropology. Concentration camp in Auschwitz. Around the period Josef Mengele was sent home, Jews were rounded up in concentration camps and kept as prisoners. Von Verschuer convinced Josef Mengele to apply and volunteer for service in the concentration camps. Josef Mengele was convinced he could use the opportunity to use prisoners as test subjects, experiments for his genetic researches. After applying for volunteer services in the concentration camp, Josef Mengele was accepted. In 1943, he was posted to the Auschwitz concentration camp. On arrival in the camp, Josef Mengele performed duties of picking prisoners who had just arrived at the camp, identifying the ones to be sent to the gas chambers and the prisoners to be used for forced labor. Picking of prisoners sent to gas chambers earned him the infamous Angel of Death tag. Josef Mengele took control and pointed out prisoners to be rounded up for gas chambers. Many of his contemporaries weren't particularly okay with the whole process of picking prisoners sent to their death in gas chambers. Josef Mengele found so much joy in the selection process that he even showed up uninvited in some cases of prisoners sent to gas chambers. He enjoyed the tasks, even smiling and singing during the selection process, which ended the lives of so many people. Human experiments and killings orchestrated by Josef Mengele. Among the prisoners in the camps, Josef Mengele took more interest in twins, which he planned to use for his researches and experiments. A month after he was posted to Auschwitz concentration camp, Josef Mengele gave orders to other physicians who were working under him. He instructed them on cases relating to prisoners who were ill or who had an injury. The instructions were that any of the prisoners who weren't showing signs of recovery within 2 weeks of treatment time should be sent to gas chambers. In that period, there was an outbreak of a bacterial disease known as Noma in the camp. During the outbreak, Josef Mengele instructed the execution of those who had contracted the disease in varying degrees. The majority of those who contracted the disease were sent to gas chambers. On the order of Josef Mengele, a combined total of 1,600 people who contracted the disease at varying levels were sent to gas chambers to their death. Josef Mengele also ordered the killing of children who had arrived at the concentration camp. He rounded up the children and had them thrown into a fire pit. Loads of children were killed on his instructions. Those who tried to escape from the fire were shoved back into the fire pit by officers who worked alongside Mengele. Josef Mengele killed so many people while in the Auschwitz camp, using them for different forms of an experiment. Starting with twins he had earlier kept for his experiments, using them as the main subjects of his experiments. Joseph rounded up many people in the camp who had peculiar eye colors, dwarves, including people who had physical deformities at birth. He used all of them for his numerous experiments and research, killing most in the process. With the help of Jewish physicians and researchers who were prisoners, he accomplished most of his experiments. Most of his experiments and research centered on genetic engineering to get rid of inferior genes. Through his researches, he tried to create the perfect gene, a purified German race replacing other races. Approximately 1,500 pairs of twins were provided for Josef Mengele during his research and experiments. Josef Mengele provided much better comfort for the twins, even sharing them candies, unlike the treatments melted out to other prisoners who were in the camp. He tattooed their arms for easy identification, instructing them to call him Uncle Mengele. The majority of the twins were killed by Josef Mengele in various ways during the experiments and researches. He would beat some of them to their death, some he killed by shooting while he stabbed some of the children to their death. Josef Mengele administered numerous medications and poisons on his test subjects, killing them instantly during his experiments. The majority of the twins under his custody had their limbs amputated by Josef Mengele, with him measuring the growth of limbs of one twin with another. During the process of his experiments, once a twin dies, he makes sure to murder the remaining twin, performing comparative autopsies with their corpses. Josef Mengele would cut open the corpses of the deceased twins, preserving their remains for further studies outside the camp. Josef Mengele experimented with the idea of creating co-joined twins, rounding up some of the twins and sewing them together. He tried to connect the blood vessels and organs of the twins, putting them through excruciating pains. The majority of the co-joined twins would later die of gangrene during the process. After their deaths, he would examine the bodies of the twins, keeping note of how one co-joined twin's death had affected the living twin. He experimented on changing eye colors of his subjects, administering dyes into their eyes. During the eye experiments, he murdered the subjects whose eyes were of different colorations. He sent out their eyes from the camp to other researchers in Berlin for further studies. Josef Mengele administered a variety of medications on the dwarves and children under his care. He would run an X-ray on them before dismembering their bodies and sending out their skeletal remains to Berlin. Numerous evil done by Josef Mengele included the murder of an infant by tossing it off the roof of a building. Josef Mengele also had most of his subjects' sexual organs removed, while also practicing incestuous impregnations on them. Josef Mengele also did blood transfusion from one twin to another, causing some of the subjects to faint in the process. He murdered plenty of the subjects. Sometimes he rounded up his subjects, dismembered their bodies for no reason. Approximately 200 twins survived out of the total number of 1,500 provided to him during his experiments. Some of the few survivors of his few experiments were sent to the gas chambers to their death. Josef Mengele participated in the deaths of numerous people in Auschwitz camp, which gave him the infamous tag, Angel of Death. Escape from Auschwitz and the end of the war. Towards the end of the war, Josef Mengele alongside his comrades planned their escape. Before leaving the camp, Jewish doctors who helped him during his numerous experiments were sent to the gas chambers on the order of Josef Mengele. On January 17, 1945, Josef Mengele escaped from Auschwitz, keeping records and data of all that transpired in the camp. After leaving Auschwitz, Mengele was captured by the American forces as a prisoner of war and later released the same year. The level of crime and atrocities committed by Mengele wasn't known at the time of his release. Mengele kept faking identity for 34 years, including moving to Argentina with a new profile. While escaping Germany, Mengele handed the records of Auschwitz camp to a friend. The pieces of evidence were found in the friend's home and investigations were ensured. Mengele was sought for persecution but was never found to be persecuted. According to numerous accounts, Mengele died of a stroke while swimming in Brazil in February of 1979. Mengele, the Angel of Death, remains one of the history's cold-blooded murderers who took many lives during the Second World War.